Okay, so here we are. I'm going to get straight into this because you've obviously seen the title of this video. Um, Batman versus Superman. How do I feel about what DC has done? I think in the short term, this movie it's bad for DC critically. But in the long term, DC's catch up with the Marvel Universe has been sped up. I think ultimately maybe just after Wonder Woman's movie, which will probably have lots of Easter eggs, tons of different moments for other movies to be advertised within it. This movie, Batman vs Superman, will be seen as something which has been a shrewd marketing move at the expense of a good opportunity to show us two classic characters clashing on screen. I want to talk about the opening credits. I think that was a great move to have Batman be birthed in front of us, in terms of him coming out of the cinema and having his parents slayed in front of him. And something that I haven't seen in any of the reviews so far, the whole motif of him coming out of the cinema having watched Mask of Zorro is seen as a big psychological factor in him wanted to be the hero, where his parents obviously needed one and weren't saved by a hero. So instead of him coming out of seeing the Mask of Zorro, or the Mark of Zorro, is it the Mask? I think it's the Mark of Zorro. He's coming out of the cinema having watched Excalibur, which is a fantastic 80s movie detailing Arthur Pendragon of Camelot, gathering his knights together. It's a little bit like how the Justice League will probably be formed, so that's a good foreshadowing attempt, I think, of Zack Snyder or whoever wrote the script. And we'll get to that in a moment. I don't think it's worth me mentioning their name because they've done some butchery to this film. Affleck as Batman, I think he did everything that he could with the material that he was given to show us an angered, very angst-ridden Batman. But I don't believe that Batman in this context should be allowed to kill. Now, some people might think that, Batman in any context killing is bad, but he did so in Frank Miller's Batman, notably in The Dark Knight. But that world is very dystopian. It wasn't a story, in fact, where the main theme of power and responsibility was so prevalent. And I've said that in other videos. I think that if Batman is going to take the law into his own hands, him having a dividing line between what is essentially corrupt, which is the taking of a life, is something that he should uphold no matter what. Especially if we're dealing with Batman having an issue with Superman's lack of restraint. He shouldn't be going around killing people as well. But I don't think Zack Snyder's aware that Batman's killing in this movie. I think Zack Snyder loves explosions, and if there was somebody in that car that was doing the bad thing, well, Batman punished them. But no, Batman isn't the punisher. He shouldn't be killing. But I think Affleck did the best he could with a script that was definitely style over substance. So no news there. But where there might be news, for me, is that a lot of people had an issue with Lex Luthor wanting Superman to go away, in that there was no true motivation. It's kind of seeded that Lex Luthor in this movie has father issues, and so perhaps he's jealous of Superman. Maybe he wants to subdue him. If he subdues a god, then therefore he's a greater man. I think Jesse Eisenberg, I don't really truly disagree with the portrayal, but he put a lot of heart and soul into it, again, with a character that seemingly had no motivation. But this is the thing, we've had a deleted scene dropped in this now. They've released a scene of Lex Luthor in Superman's crashed spacecraft somehow having not a vision as such, so many characters, visions in this movie, but dealings with an otherworldly life form, which could be him having some kind of instruction from Darkseid, who, as you may or may not know, is a really big antagonist in the Superman comics, as powerful as Superman, a dictator, that maybe has promised Lex Luthor something. We don't know. This movie, it's almost like a puzzle that you're supposed to be able to put together using deleted scenes, using your geek friend who may be sitting to the left or right of you in the cinema. And I don't know if a movie should actually work on the merits of extracurricular activities by the marketing staff. I think it should work as its own piece. And if it were to use exterior stuff, then it could be touted as a multimedia experience. But I don't think that the movie makers are using that excuse or explanation in the best possible way. I think the movie was edited with one thing in mind: fast forwarding an organic process for the sake of movies that are supposedly just around the corner, i.e. Wonder Woman, The Flash, Aquaman. I don't think that a Cyborg movie is going to be on the cards anytime soon. I think he'll be introduced in Justice League. But we didn't watch a movie, we watched a very expensive advert. So I think you can actually surmise that I didn't have the greatest experience watching this movie. But then again, we're talking experience as opposed to intellectually stimulating extravaganza. Unlike a lot of Marvel movies, this film goes for sensationalism over posing any big philosophical debate. Like, say, the Vision in Age of Ultron is a walking philosophy lecture. He is understanding life through the eyes of something, because he is a creature rather than a person, as something that needs to be protected, but at the same time questioned about its beliefs. You don't have a character like that in the DC Cinematic Universe. If they ever do choose to use Dr. Fate, who arguably has the same archetype as the Vision, that would be cool. But I don't really trust DC's producers to let the writers handle that in the best possible way. I think from a business standpoint, the superhero bubble might be taken advantage of by DC's fast forwarding of their franchise. Maybe they believe it's something that will burst, like, say, the Western. It won't be around forever. I think it has a lot of life left in it, especially in the TV continuum, such as the Netflix Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and the upcoming Defenders TV series. But yeah, DC is at core there's a very knee-jerk culture there, and I don't think that they're going to really understand the idea of building one character, then another character in their own separate franchises, and then putting them into one big movie. They don't have the patience for that. And hey, who knows? Maybe the boffins at the top understand the movie universe in a way that us critics, or so self-critics, could actually say, So, I think they had an opportunity to present Clark as a character who would see the idea of setting examples through non-action as being it'd be a good example for him to not be beating people up every 5 seconds. I think if he was to avoid fighting Batman as much as he could, that would be great. But even though he said to Clark he didn't want to fight, literally 10 seconds later, he's shoving him, a mortal, across the room. So I found that contradictory. I think ultimately his obligation to not lose his emotions or lose control of his emotions is something that they could have explored. But I feel that it's really about might makes right in this movie, which is a very stereotypical Americanized ideology, which, well, I don't think they know who Superman is. So, okay, I think if you've seen the Daredevil season 2, show, then you would have been very much enthralled by how Daredevil and Punisher have their ideologies clashing in terms of their dialogue between them. And Superman and Batman chose to deliver their dialogue through conversations with their secondary characters rather than with each other. So again, that's a very simple idea of drama. Conflict between two characters should come from them opposing each other, not just through other characters, but against each other. Batman and Superman didn't really have that. I think there was some corny dialogue between Batman and Superman when they were fighting, but that's not really a conversation. And I think the Netflix shows understand this. I think if you put on a costume, then you kind of forfeit the right to be just seen as one of the guys. You can't walk into a room and be making threats, which is what Superman did, to Batman and to other people. And no, he's a walking nuclear weapon, so to speak. Again. So this is a bit of a rant about the movie, and I don't know if I'm really that apologetic about it, because, well, for every person that says it's amazing that they shouldn't be taken so seriously, I think we're at a point in pop culture where superhero movies can actually be seen as good movies that happen to have superheroes in them. The Dark Knight proved that over 8 years ago now, so yeah, I have issues with this movie. Lois Lane was... I think Amy Adams, again, is a good actress who dealt with a character who didn't really have enough stuff to do in this movie. They tried to suggest that she did, with the whole intrigue and plot in the Middle East and her part in that, but I think ultimately we have to wait for another movie where she might have more character stuff to do, maybe when they bring Superman back, and we'll talk about his death momentarily. So yeah, I don't blame the actress, but I do blame the script for not really treating her as a character, but just as a carriage for plot. I've never really noticed how Superman's mum, Martha Kent, had the same name as Bruce's mum, Martha Wayne. And do I have much to say about that? Yeah, I suppose that in the 30s, maybe all women were called Martha. I don't know, it's seen as a very household, very warm kind of name. But the way they used that in this movie was to get Batman to realise that he'd been had and that Superman had been played as well. So, yeah, I suppose that's quite an inventive turn of events. But yeah, let's get to something a bit more hardcore. Wonder Woman is basically a walking advert for a standalone movie. No need to really worry about character development here. It's all about the action and the few intriguing lines and a shared picture of Chris Pine from that standalone movie. Yeah, I would have liked to see a little bit more, and this is actually quite an ongoing sentence. I would like to see more. I felt like I was seeing a very shiny, cathedral, but once you go inside you realise it's unfurnished and there's a few rats running around. I don't know why Wonder Woman has decided to turn her back on humanity. What has she seen that's made her decide for over 100 years that humanity isn't worth fighting for up until now? Maybe we'll get that in the next movie, but I think they could have had it here rather than later to give us an idea of who she is. So I feel like we haven't truly met her yet. Lex Luthor, I'll be honest, it was an interesting take. I don't feel the script was weird for the sake of being weird. I just feel that there were scenes cut out of this movie, and there always are. There always are lines or scenes that are seen as superfluous to a movie for it to have its pace and rhythm, but this movie wasn't obsessed with pace and rhythm. The editing was all over the place, so they might have sort of chucked in a scene that showed how Lex's life of his father truly was a motivating factor for him to have such an issue with Superman. I think that's where they're going with him. Superman's death, if we knew him enough to miss him, then it would have impact, and I think his inevitable return would be something that we could truly have emotional stock in. But we don't really know what his beliefs are. With the few chats that we had with, say, Christopher Reeve's Superman in the 1978 movie, we knew what his standpoint was in terms of how he sees people. It's a great device to have him interviewed by Lois Lane, which they could have had in this movie. But viewers, I don't think they're really that interested in giving us Superman's internal dialogue. So it's easy for us to judge him. Arguably, him and Lois have a connection which might shine a certain similarity for people who might see his face in the paper alongside hers. They might put two and two together and think that he's Clark, but hey, him wearing glasses, we've always accepted him wearing glasses being like a disguise, so there's no excuse for them not to have some kind of connection with Lois through the papers to put people at ease as to what he is about. What do I think of Wonder Woman's discovery of the files on metahumans? Again, it's just a symptom of DC wanting to advertise their future movies via this one. I don't really have too much to say that people haven't said already. I thought the CGI was great on Aquaman, but it's not really a movie, it's an advert. So why are people let down? We live in a complicated world which constantly is searching for simplified solutions in its media, fictional media. Superman was invented in 1938 when we needed to believe in something in a very terrible time of war. So I believe that escapist cinema now, where we have the bad guys that are truly bad and the good guys who are basically good, is an indication of a collective frustration of an ever-diluted world where political leaders, public figures in general, aren't always as clear-cut as they like us to believe. Bill Cosby, quite a few DJs from the UK's Radio 1, even Africa Bambaataa have been accused of kiddie fiddling. So more than ever, we were looking forward to a superhero movie where we could have a character like Superman literally be the shining light to lead us the way, and we didn't get that. So I think that's why a lot of people are frustrated with this film. The movie is a puzzle, and you can't possibly work out or enjoy it as it ends, not on an intellectual level, which, as I said before, Marvel through Age of Ultron, Captain America's Winter Soldier, Iron Man, and quite a few other movies, as I said, have actually been able to achieve the roller coaster energy that you want from a summer blockbuster, as well as to deliver us an intellectually stimulating film. But I'm going to end it there. I think that Affleck's script of his solo Batman movie has just been turned in, according to the Hollywood Reporter, via his agents. It's apparently quite good, and they would say that, but hey, the man directed Argo, and he directed and starred in Argo, so let's hope that that's a better movie, and not an advertisement of future movies, which is what Batman vs. Superman is. I'll give it a 2 out of 4, because if you ever give stuff out of 5, then going to 3 is damn easy. I'm going to give it 2 out of 4. It's not a terrible marketing move in the long term, but a horrible movie in the short term. Fascinating to dissect. What do you think? Leave a comment on the video below. I'd like to see how this movie is remembered in the future, because I think maybe if you do study film, this would be one of the ones you want to dissect. Bye-bye for now.